Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Taylor Tommila and this is Honda Films, and here you are here to learn about photography. I'm going to teach you a few things today. I'm really excited because I got home earlier this week from shooting a hyperlapse and I found this waiting for me on my desk. It's a 35mm prime lens from Yongnuo, and I'm super excited to use it because I had the Yongnuo 50mm, and so I'm going to show you a little bit of why I like this lens and why I don't like about it, and I'm also going to teach you about 5 reasons why you should be owning a 35mm lens. Let's go over a few things, best reasons why I think you need a 35mm. 35mm lenses, whether you use them on your DSLR or your mirrorless camera, have large maximum apertures. This, of course, means a couple of important things. For starters, the same maximum large apertures makes it easier for you to get nice blurry bokeh portraits. Since the size of the aperture influences the depth of field, the bigger the aperture of your lens, the easier it'll be for you to get those nice bokeh fill backgrounds. The big apertures allow you to shoot in challenging lighting conditions without sacrificing as much for shutter speed. In the 35mm, you get a result that closely mimics what you see with your own eyes. Think about it. Many movies are shot in 35mm film because it gives the audience a familiar and realistic point of view. It's the same is true as photography. A 35mm prime lens like the Nikon 35mm f1.4 or the Canon f1.8 gives you a realistically looking view because it's a fixed focal length or prime lens. So that means you get to change the composition. You don't get to rely on zoom. Instead, you have to actually move your feet to change the composition, which challenges you more to be a creative photographer. That's a good thing. Like most 35mm lenses, like this one right here, this Yongnuo, are small and compact, making them much easier to carry than heavier, longer lenses, particularly telephoto lenses. If you have a long day of shooting ahead of you, the last thing you want to do is lumber around a heavy attached lens to your camera. Granted, sometimes you need a big heavy lens, but more often than not, a small 35mm lens gets you more than you need. Their size, their featherly weight, their ideal choice for a daily walk around or a travel photography lens. You might even find yourself buying a 35mm lens just because it challenges you from your default lens. Like its cousin to the 50mm, a 35mm lens is known for having great and excellent versatility. Use it on the full frame to get a full view of the landscape, pop it onto a crop sensor camera for a long, effective focal length for portraits. You can even use it on a 35 for street photography, product photography, macro work. You can just flip it around and you can use it for macro shots. It's pretty awesome. With this lens, you can pretty much tackle any subject. It doesn't require a telephoto length. So in that case, you haven't noticed, photography is a pretty expensive hobby. So being able to do a bunch of different things with a single lens like this one makes it even better. If you shoot with a wide angle lens, you can be somewhat restricted in what things you can actually shoot. Landscapes, for example, they look great, but portraits can be distorted because of the wide angle view. On the other hand, a standard lens like a 50mm is great for a lot of things, but in tight spaces, especially if it's on a crop sensor camera, because it turns it from the 50 to an 80, it can be too narrow of a view. So the 35mm lens is an ideal compromise between the two. As noted earlier, a 35mm creates an image that's more pleasing to view because it closely resembles our own eye and our own field of vision. The Yongnuo version I like about this is basically it looks just like my 50mm, the same shell. The focus motor in this thing right here, for example, is really, really loud. So if you're planning on shooting video with this, make sure you're mic'd to an external source so that you don't hear the whoop, 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 or just manually focus your camera. That works too. This is perfect for low light conditions. I've used this in low light scenarios such as concert shoots and things of that nature where it's really low light, and it turns out so well. And I'm very, very happy with it. I mean, should I have the Canon 35? Oh, I would love to have the Canon 35. There's a lot of difference between the 35 and this one. For example, this one, like I said earlier, is smaller than the actual 35 for Canon. The Canon one's a lot bigger around. They also have the see-through window on the very top here. That's the ability I can actually turn this thing around if I wanted to. If I wanted to take a macro shot, I could just flip this camera around lens and pop up like this, and I could take a macro shot, no problem, using this lens. So that's pretty cool function as well. It's cheap. What can I say? It's cheap. It focuses well. It takes good. The camera profiles in here closely mimic Canon as best it possibly could. When you end up using the portrait mode on here in Lightroom, especially if you do that one, then you're going to find yourself looking at a really pink person instead of the orange you get from the Canon color profiles. So anyway, I'm Taylor Tommila. I really hope this video helped you out. I hope it really kind of got you motivated to go out there and take some photographs. I know with the whole thing going on right now in the world, it's really hard to do that. So don't get discouraged, don't fall into a slump. And I really hope you checked out my previous video to this one about 10 things for beginning photographers to get into. A lot of work went into that. So I really appreciate you take to watch these videos, and make sure you please check me out on Patreon, become a Patreon subscriber. That'd be great because these videos are expensive to make, and so time consuming as well. So anyway, thank you very much. And remember, photography is not about great depth of field, it's about great depth of feeling. See ya.